If I told you World War III could begin today, you'd probably laugh. But what if I showed you the exact moment the first domino falls? A single collision, a single missile, a single mistake, and the world plunges into a war we can't control, can't stop, and might not survive. This is an A prediction. This is what would happen the moment the countdown hits zero. The year is 2026. For months, something in the air has felt unstable. Alliances tightening, borders hardening, economies shaking under pressure. The world hasn't experienced a global scale war in nearly a century, but history has a way of repeating itself when the world ignores its warning signs. And this time it begins in the South China Sea. Filipino Coast Guard vessel and a Chinese maritime militia ship collide during a tense standoff near the Spratly Islands. Both sides claim the other made the first move. Within minutes, water cannons fire, hulls strike, and one vessel begins taking on water. Beijing calls the incident unfortunate. Manila calls it an attack. Hours later, satellite imagery shows long-range missile units in southern China activating. Simultaneously, on the other side of the world, Russian artillery accidentally lands inside eastern Poland during an exercise near the Belarus border. Point two crises, two flashpoints, and then something far worse connects them. A coordinated global cyber strike cripples major ports from Dubai to Los Angeles. Container logs vanish. Oil terminals freeze. Flight systems fail from Europe to Southeast Asia. No one claims responsibility, but every nation already has its suspect. This is how World War III starts. Not with a dramatic invasion, but with dozens of small confrontations, each deniable on its own, but together enough to pull the world into chaos. Two major coalitions emerge. On one side, the Global Defense Alliance, United States, nearly all NATO members, Japan, South Korea, Australia, the Philippines, and several European and Asian partners. Their objective: prevent territorial expansion and keep global trade open. Opposite them stands the Eastern Strategic Bloc, China, Russia, Iran, Pakistan, and several aligned states providing logistics or support. Their strategy: create simultaneous conflicts so the West can't respond. Everywhere at once, neutral powers India, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, much of Africa attempt to stay out. But neutrality becomes nearly impossible when their shipping lanes, minerals, and fuel routes turn into battlegrounds. Chinese anti-ship ballistic missiles streak into the skies over the Philippine Sea, targeting U.S. and Japanese naval groups. Aegis destroyers fire interceptors immediately. Some missiles are destroyed mid-air. Several slip through. A U.S. support vessel burns. A damaged Australian frigate limps toward Palau. China isn't trying to annihilate the fleets that they're trying to push them back far enough that American reinforcements can't reach Southeast Asia in time. And then comes the blockade. Chinese submarines, drones, and missile boats begin forming a ring around the South China Sea, daring anyone to cross their line. The Philippines and Vietnam scramble defenses. Japanese fighters lift off from Kyushu. U.S. bombers take flight from Guam and northern Australia armed with long-range anti-ship missiles. Distance becomes the enemy. Reaching the conflict zone takes the U.S. days. China is minutes away. That's when the submarine war kicks in. American Virginia-class subs slip into contested waters, hunting Chinese transport ships supplying the blockade. They can't break the blockade alone, but they can make it increasingly costly to maintain. By the end of the first week, hundreds of missiles have flown and neither side controls the sea. Russia launches a security operation into eastern Poland and Lithuania, claiming its citizens are in danger. Artillery and drones strike NATO logistics hubs near the border. From Kaliningrad, advanced missile systems threaten every NATO vessel in the Baltic Sea. NATO responds immediately. The U.S. 101st Airborne deploys to Poland. French and German armored units roll toward the Baltics. British and Swedish jets patrol the critical Suwalki Gap, the narrow stretch connecting Europe to the Baltic states. Within days, clashes erupt across the region. Drones dominate the battlefield. Tanks burn. Bridges fall. Supply lines are struck relentlessly. Europe hasn't seen fighting like this in generations, but the war is only spreading further. Pakistan deploys naval mines in the Strait of Hormuz and fires missiles. At major oil terminals, global oil prices triple in 24 hours. U.S. carriers rush into the Arabian Sea. Gulf state allies scramble to remove mines. Pakistani fast boats harass shipping lanes daily. And across the region, Iran-backed militias in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen launch attacks on U.S. bases and Israeli cities. The Middle East becomes a second front, not decisive, but devastatingly draining. Commercial ships begin traveling in full convoys again, escorted by warships, something the world hasn't needed since World War II. Lose the Suez Canal? Europe's oil must travel around Africa, adding weeks. Lose the Strait of Malacca? Japan and South Korea run out of fuel within a month. Navies use sonar, decoys, drones, and satellites to scan the oceans. Every shipping route becomes a potential trap. By month 3, energy is rationed. Cities dim their lights. Millions face shortages. Both coalitions begin targeting each other's satellites, mostly by blinding or jamming them, instead of blowing them up. GPS signals glitch. Drones lose guidance. Communication blackouts ripple across continents. And alongside this comes the cyber war. Fake alerts spread. Banking systems fail. Stock markets crash. Misinformation sparks riots in major cities even before the truth can catch up. The front lines barely move anymore. China's blockade holds, but it can't force a surrender. Russia occupies pockets of eastern Poland and Lithuania, but no major cities. Iran controls Hormuz mainly by threat, not by dominance. Everyone is running out of something. The US burns through tens of thousands of precision weapons. China and Europe face extreme fuel shortages. Russia lacks manpower and spare parts. Logistics become the real battlefield. Missiles are rationed. Ships are cannibalized for parts. Smaller nations begin collapsing under economic pressure. Food prices spike. Power grids fail. Refugees flee from Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia in the millions. Neutral nations beg for peace, but neither side wants to stop without leverage. Then, a turning point. A major Chinese convoy in the Babayan Channel hits an American minefield. Several transport ships sink. A U.S. submarine is destroyed near the Paracel Islands soon after. Both sides take losses, but China's momentum slows. A full-scale landing becomes too risky. Meanwhile, in Europe, NATO begins pushing Russia back using new long-range drones and precision artillery. Parts of occupied territory are retaken. Economics shift the balance. The Western coalition simply has deeper pockets and more industrial capacity. By the end of year 1, the war has no clear victor, but both sides know they cannot continue like this forever. Neither side can achieve total victory, but both sides can claim partial success. The West keeps trade routes open and stops territorial losses. Russia and China say they defended their regions. Quiet diplomatic talks begin through neutral nations. Ceasefires are negotiated. Sanctions ease just enough to restart global shipping. It's not peace, just a fragile, uneasy new normal. Prolonged war and sanctions could cause Russia's economy, already weakened, to break entirely, sparking internal unrest or a leadership change. China could face its own crisis if energy shortages, sanctions, and military losses trigger instability inside the CCP. This scenario ends the war abruptly, but a collapsing nuclear power would be the world's worst nightmare. This would require the US or NATO, fracturing under economic strain or political upheaval extremely improbable. The coalition controls over half of global military spending and most of the world's critical supply chains. So what do you think? Which scenario seems most likely, and which one terrifies you the most? If you want to see what happens if a major alliance invades the US mainland, click the video on your screen now. Thanks for watching.